Hey everybody, welcome to an early look into the beta of Planet Coaster. Now I, along with a couple of other content creators, got early access into the beta in order to make some sneak preview videos of it. And I was figuring for quite a while what I actually wanted to do with this, since the time frame, I have to be honest, isn't quite large. I only had a couple of spare hours to put this together before I really don't have any time anymore and before the game actually goes public. So what I wanted to do actually is focus on something other than the coasters, which are gonna be super awesome. There are some great new rides, some great new scenery, and great new additions into the game. But one thing which I actually wanted to focus on that I don't think too many other people are gonna pick up on are the detailing in Planet Coaster. The beta comes, from what I've seen, with a lot of very small pieces, and a lot of very small pieces that you can recolor and put together in different ways to make your own kind of things. And what for me is gonna make this quite a game changer is that with every new small piece that you get into the game, the amount of things that you can do pretty much exponentially increase. And with the new art pieces, the new very narrow pillars and wooden brackets, that kind of stuff in the game, you can actually do a lot to make your own kind of details, to give your own kind of textures, and make really your own very detailed style of building. And this is what I think also the new beta is going to allow for: a lot of different styles and a lot more uniqueness to the things that people are building. So far, many of the builds in Planet Coaster still refer back to the same objects that everybody has. There is not that much free form when it comes to forming your own balconies or making your own windows or making your own anything on a building, really. And I think the new very small pieces are going to be quite a game changer in this. And that's also why I decided to build the style of building that I'm building right here. I wanted to pick something very safe because I didn't have time to blend this all. So I just kind of went YOLO at it and decided to build a bit of a French palace kind of stable building, inspired by those simple stable buildings with an entrance, maybe a couple of towers, a few simple decorations, kind of in the style of the main palace that they're supposed to be connected to, which allows for a small building but with loads of interesting details and with a cool palace garden around it. And this is pretty much what I wanted to settle for. And what, in the case of very small details, it allows me to do is actually experiment a bit with the details that you don't really see in the game itself, but that you can use the new pieces for. So for example, the new textureless art pieces can actually be used to make your own anything, really. But there are a couple of very small squares, rectangles, and triangular and spherical pieces in there, which is so small and so versatile that you can really make just about anything out of it. So here I wanted to make a custom cornice, kind of in the style that fits along with the rest of the building. And on the top of the roof there, I also wanted to put together those pieces to make some fancy fences with lots of fancy peaks on the side as well, to make the building a little bit more interesting. And on the front here, where we're gonna have a small tower with a pretty simple spire, but still what's really the most defining feature of the building, I also wanted to play a bit more with these very small new pieces. But what I have to say is that before I opened the beta, I was actually really afraid that the new like textureless art pieces would not really fit with building styles, like many of the things that Frontier showed them off with. And what I suppose they're really meant for is making any kind of like cartoony decoration thing. For example, they made, I think, stuff like a dragon, anything that you can put together and make very colorful and very carnival-ish looking. But I was actually kind of afraid that you wouldn't be able to use these pieces to make custom building pieces and insert them seamlessly into your buildings. But that's actually something which this building sort of proves otherwise, and that's what I was trying to do here. Mix the very free art pieces together with the regular building pieces, kind of mix the textures and colors a bit, make them stand out a bit, and create your own shapes that way. And especially for the cornices here, since I needed some very flat rectangular shapes and something that blends into the rest of the scenery. These shapes were very useful. For the roof here, I wanted to make a custom roof, and there is a bunch of new wooden pieces that are super handy, and this one is actually a very small piece that almost makes this bit of a roof texture to it if you put a lot of them together. I'm not actually that worried about the amount of pieces here. The building is still well within the 2000 pieces at the end and not causing any lags so far, so I'm actually quite happy with that. And I'm here just very quickly putting together the dormer on the top of the spire here. Make the building a bit more fancy. I will tackle the top in a little bit, but first I wanted to decorate the sides a little bit. And this might just be me, but I'm actually really happy with how the very small new pieces, as well as the very narrow new pillars came out. Because narrow pillars is something that the game didn't really have yet, but what I think is actually going to make quite a big change, for me at least. Since you can make a lot out of these very narrow beams, you can just make supports out of them, but you can also make these Victorian sort of galleries in front of buildings. You can make spires, definitely spires. There's a lot of pointy bits that, you know, the pieces that we had so far were too large and too bulky for, that you can really get into some more sophisticated, smaller details right now, which is also why I put a ridiculous amount of like spirey points on this building as well. And finally, on top of the spire here, I wanted to put another pretty large cornice to finish that off. I wasn't actually that happy with the shape of the spire. I just sort of tried it at once and see how it would work out, and I wasn't that happy with it. But I think the top cornice kind of shapes out the roof a little bit more, and I'm quite happy actually with how that looks in the end. There's a bunch of new stuff for windows as well. The new windows are in a much more generic style, I think, than the windows that we had in the game so far, which were quite piratey, quite costly, and very Spanish, or just completely modern. But now there are some windows which can definitely be used in a lot of different styles. There's a lot of new windows and door pieces that I quite like, and over here especially, the dormers came in pretty handy. Also, I have to say, this is quite a Main Street looking building, even if it's a little bit more European. And many of these pieces can definitely be made to make some very Disney-esque main streets. Just something that I think is very interesting. And as one of the last parts of making the building, I wanted to get some dormers on the top of the windows here, just because that's pretty much the only way to make this roof a little bit more interesting. Most of the detail in this building is really in the roof. I wanted to keep the walls quite flat and have just all of these different points and fences and decorations on the roof. And just to make them come out a bit more, I wanted to put some dormers on them here as well, which are very simple. I didn't want to take time to really make these dormers too interesting, but I at least wanted to get some dormers in there, and these quickly made dormers worked out pretty nicely there. And finally, it really comes down to the detailing of the building to make it come to life a bit, and there's a bunch of new lanterns and stuff that you can hang on the sides of walls and roofs, and that's what I quickly did there. There's also the robe, which is supposed to be used for the Western theme, but it has a French flag on it, and I was like, hey, why not? Might as well try it. So I put that on the balcony on the front, and then the last thing that I wanted to do, which isn't really related to the building itself, but really to making the building look the way that it's gonna look in some kind of context. Make the quick, simple palace gardens, and I am not sure if I really got this correctly, but it kind of seemed to me like the paths were flowing a bit more easily. Though it's probably just me, I didn't actually try it that much in the last alpha, but I was actually quite surprised in any case how well the paths were doing with coming together here. And I think being able to get the paths together to make some actual larger plazas without curbs in the middle. An interesting new option in the path section is that you can actually remove the curb of a path, which is pretty cool, because I actually didn't quite like how if you put different paths on the side of each other you have curbs in the middle. That was one of the things that irked me about the path system, but that's something that's a thing of the past now, which is quite nice. And also there are all of these new textures, which I'm really happy with. They are a lot more washed out and generic, and I think also a lot more versatile than the path textures that we had before, so that's a very big improvement. And yeah, especially in this case, since it has that old rustic brick texture and the gravelly palace garden texture, it fits perfectly for what I'm trying to go for here. So there was no reason not to use the new textures for the paths here. Also, of course, I kind of want to show them off as well. Now finally, I was struggling with these lamps a bit, as happy as I am with these new lights, because so far we didn't have any like antique light posts yet. The only light post that we had was the modern one, and these look really good. I was trying to decorate them for a bit, but that didn't go that well. You can always hang some planters on it, or put some extra Victorian decorations on them, but in this case I didn't have the patience anymore and wanted to get straight into the foliage. Because there are a lot of new trees, and I really like the way that they look. They're also a bit more, like the colors are quite different than what we had so far. So far many of the foliage items had very similar colors, which resulted in not that varied landscapes when it comes to the color of foliage, but the new trees will definitely help make parks look a lot more lush, and I'm very happy with that. Anyway, that's just about it for this time lapse. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you're looking forward to seeing the beta. It is awesome, and I wish you all a lot of fun with trying it.